Federer once held the #1 ranking for a record 237 straight weeks. That stretch of dominance was rooted in the first Wimbledon crown in 2003, a breakthrough that lit the spark for everything that followed. The thing is, none of it was guaranteed. He fought through a hot temper, nagging injuries, and the pressure of impossible expectations. But more than winning trophies, he kept reinventing himself. So how did a kid who smashed rackets grow into a man who made tennis look effortless? Let's start in Basel. Ever wonder how early passion shapes a champion's path? In Basel, a 3-year-old boy spent countless hours hitting a tennis ball against any surface he could find. Garage doors, brick walls, you name it. To him, it was pure joy, not training. The repetition felt natural, almost like a musician running scales until the fingers know the music by heart. What looked playful from the outside was already the outline of a future master. It wasn't just the ball striking. The way he moved made him stand out, fluid, quick, effortless, in a way that made coaches stop and notice. But there was a flip side. That same kid could explode when points didn't go his way, slamming rackets and letting anger spill out. Teammates and coaches saw both the elegance and the temper. The mix of brilliance and volatility was impossible to miss. If you've ever loved a sport enough to miss everything else for it, you know how this feels. His childhood wasn't just about swings and rallies, it was also about the push and pull between control and emotion. His family background added another layer. With a Swiss father and a South African mother, he grew up balancing two worlds. From his Swiss side came structure and discipline, a way of seeing the game with precision. From his South African side came warmth, resilience, and a bigger sense of perspective. Together, they shaped a boy who could burn hot in competition but calm himself after. It gave him intensity, but also a way to reset. The turning point came at 14. He left Basel for the Swiss National Tennis Center in Wimbledon. A huge change for a teenager. And here's the thing, it wasn't smooth. The first 5 months were rough. He was homesick, uneasy in a new social circle, and even the French-speaking environment felt like a wall he had to climb. Nights stretched long, and the spark that had fueled him at home dimmed under the weight of isolation. That struggle mattered. Away from home, comforts, he had to learn resilience in a different way. He began to figure out how to handle setbacks, manage losses, and keep moving forward without a constant encouragement. For many kids, those lonely months might have broken the will to compete. For him, they forced inner strength. What started as an obsession with hitting balls off garage doors slowly shifted into something tougher. Discipline carried through hardship. It wasn't one dramatic breakthrough that shaped him here, but the grind of staying when he wanted to run home. Every day spent at the academy asking himself if he really belonged, and every day choosing to keep going anyway added steel to his resolve. That willingness to endure became the quiet underpinning of the player he was becoming. So when you look back, those early years weren't just about raw talent or pretty technique. They were about constant contest between instinct and restraint, joy and frustration. He didn't erase emotion from his game. He learned how to shape it, how to bend it toward fuel instead of distraction. By the time he began stepping into junior tournaments, you could see what those choices had built. The boy from Basel had turned his passion into endurance and his frustration into direction. The stage was set for the first moments when his victory would stop being private lessons in persistence and start to resonate on the broader stage. Moments that hinted at something much bigger to come. Federer's rise through the junior ranks showed how quickly talent can turn into results. In 1998, on the grass of Wimbledon, he captured both the boys' singles and double titles. That same season, he also added the orange ball to his resume and finished the year ranked as the ITF Junior World Champion, the official world #1 among juniors. For a teenager still shaping his game, that was a statement. But here's the thing, junior trophies don't guarantee success at the next level. Moving from short junior matches to the demands of 5-set pro battles is a brutal leap. Many players shine in youth events only to fade once faced with bigger stages, stronger opponents, and relentless travel. So while Federer's Wimbledon sweep turned heads, it also begged the question, would this young player actually carry that promise into the professional tour? Early glimpses of him on grass reinforced the sense of something different. His movement looked almost effortless, with footwork that allowed him to glide rather than lunge. The one-handed backhand, already smooth, let him create surprising angles. At 16 and 17, his relaxed wrist and natural timing made his rallies flow in a way few juniors managed. Even then, you couldn't help but spot a style that seemed to belong at the highest level. Yet stepping into the pro ranks in 1999 and 2000 proved humbling. Federer entered tournaments full of belief, won matches that revealed his shot-making flair, and even reached an early tour final. But for every glimpse of brilliance, there were also sudden lapses. The forehand that could dominate one day might misfire under pressure the next. Losses piled up, and they showed him what all players learn quickly at that level. Talent opens the door, but consistency keeps you in the room. Coaches still worry about his temper. The fire that once had him throwing rackets during junior days wasn't completely gone, and when frustration boiled over, it could unravel whole matches. The gap between youth champion and tour contender wasn't simply technical, it was emotional. Federer had to find ways to steady himself, to carry focus through an entire match rather than just a run of games. Still, there was something unmistakable in the way he played. His improvisation mid-rally, the freedom to switch pace or invent a shot, signaled that this wasn't just another baseline grinder. He had artistry, even if it still came mixed with volatility. Watching him then was like watching a sculptor early into the block of marble. Flashes of elegance showed through, but the shape wasn't fully revealed. Each tough loss carried lessons. Every set that slipped away after a lead carved some of the rashness out of his response. Each stumble reinforced that control mattered just as much as flair. Slowly, the outbursts began to taper, replaced by a steadier presence. By taking those hits early, Federer built a layer of resilience, one that would eventually give his artistry a stable frame. So when you think back on his junior years, they mattered less as a sign of prophecy and more of as a foundation. Winning Wimbledon juniors and ending the year number 1 among juniors announced his arrival. But it was the trials that followed that actually prepared him. Elegance wasn't enough without reliability. Enjoyment in playing had to survive through defeat. And that's why the real turning point wasn't a junior trophy, it was the setbacks molded his games and his mind. Because soon, the same stage where he had lifted a boys' title would return to him in a very different light. And the next time his name echoed through center court, it wasn't about potential anymore, it was about proving he was ready to compete for the sport's biggest prize. How does the first Grand Slam rewrite someone's career? In Federer's case, the answer came in 2003 at Wimbledon, when at just 21 he earned his breakthrough. He beat Mark Philippoussis in the final claim to his first major, walking onto the center court, not yet as the legend we know, but as a player still shaping his mind and taming his nerves. For 2 weeks, he held steady, and by lifting that trophy, he showed he could master the pressure that breaks so many others. The weight of this achievement is easy to grasp when you remember Wimbledon's aura. Center court has long been a test of more than strokes and serves. It tests if you can carry the occasion. Many with raw talent arrive sharp, only to crumble under tradition's shadow. That was the concern with Federer. Was he still too fragile? Too volatile? Too easily shaken by the spotlight? Or was this the moment when all the raw promise finally solidified? 2 years earlier, we had seen a preview. In 2001, he stunned Pete Sampras in the 4th round on the same grass. Sampras was the 7-time king of Wimbledon, and Federer's upset was a shock that told the world this teenager could rise to the very top. By 2003, that foreshadowing matured into reality. He wasn't just a player who once toppled the ruling champion, he was now ready to take the stage as champion himself. The change wasn't sudden magic, it came from years of sharpening his temperament. By 2003, he had learned to turn fire into focus. That growth wasn't accidental, it came through steady discipline, the influence of coaches, even working at times on mental training to help him handle pressure. Earlier, a lost set might have set him spiraling. Now, his body language projected calm, and his game carried it. Serving with precision, striking the forehand clean, and staying composed during momentum swings, all signaled that he had learned to keep control. In that 2003 run, you could see the blueprint of what followed. His serve functioned like a release valve, easing pressure in tight moments. His forehand carved angles that forced opponents wide. More than the power, it was the composure that stood out. He didn't rush, he didn't show panic. Watching him felt different. It was as if he had found a new rhythm, blending aggression with elegance in a way men's tennis hadn't seen for years. Stats will always show that Wimbledon 2003 was his first slam, but the numbers only tell a part of it. What really mattered was the feeling for Federer, for tennis, for the fans watching. The win wasn't just another name on the honors list, it shifted the sport's center of gravity. For the first time, people could imagine a different style of dominance, one based not on power alone, but on grace married to consistency. Federer's first crown was a proof of reinvention. The same racket-throwing teenager had built himself into a disciplined competitor. What used to be frustration was now composure. What used to be his promise had turned into delivery. You could see it now, how he walked, how he played, how he handled each round. That Wimbledon wasn't just a trophy, it marked the sport's balance tilting towards a new standard. And from that afternoon forward, everything changed. His win in 2003 lit the spark for a sustained run that would test the limits of dominance itself. The question wasn't whether he could compete at the top anymore, the question became how long he could hold the game in his hands. What followed was the stretch fans come to call the era of elegance and records. From the first Wimbledon crown, Federer didn't just add to the resume, he built a reign. At 21, he moved from hopeful contender to the sport's center of gravity. Soon after, he would stack achievements that rewrote expectations for what one player could sustain. That 2003 victory became the foundation for a run unlike anything tennis had seen. He held the #1 ranking for 237 straight weeks, a record streak, and across his career, he collected 20 Grand Slam titles. Those numbers land with weight, not as empty stats, but as a proof of how fully his early habits translated into dominance. What you should take from this is simple. The same routines he built as a kid in Basel, endless ball striking, late night practice, and the struggle to control his emotions, became a steady system. That system allowed him to perform when pressure surged and to repeat success year after year. It wasn't luck, it was structure. And when you watched him, you could feel that structure underneath the fluidity of his shots. Opponents described the sensation of facing him like walking into a storm that looked calm from the outside. His movement was so smooth, his preparation so quiet, that rallies felt decided before they started. The thing is, he didn't overwhelm with sheer power. He created an aura where precision felt heavier than weight, and that became a bigger hurdle than any individual shot. Federer's adaptability made the streak even harder to crack. Grass suited his balance and serve, clay tested his patience, and hard courts demanded the blend of both. Yet he adjusted without changing identity. It was like listening to musicians switch instruments. The song stayed the same, only the tone shifted. That made him dangerous everywhere. And what connected fans to him wasn't only the records. His demeanor carried echoes of both his Swiss roots and his South African upbringing. You saw discipline and restraint, but also his warmth in how he treated the sports and its followers. Even in the most dominant years, he didn't present himself as untouchable. The grace he showed off court made the grace on court resonate even more. That combination, elegance in play, humility in bearing, turned his peak years into more than just a chapter of sporting success. They became a symbol of how tennis could look when artistry matched consistency. For fans, it meant something. It raised expectations not just for what winning looked like, but for how winning should feel to watch. So when you look back at that era, the records give it shape, but the real takeaway is what built them. If you take one thing from Federer's ascent, it's this: obsession only works when you pair it with disciplined practice and the ability to manage your emotions. That mix is what transforms raw skill into a career that can bend history. The thing is, his impact wasn't just about collecting trophies, he changed what it felt like to watch tennis. A rally with Federer could feel like music, precise, balanced, and beautiful. Please like and subscribe so we can keep making these type of documentaries, as it takes a lot of effort. Thank you.